Everyone thinks the Lenovo LOQ 15IRX10 is the budget gaming cheat code of 2025. But here is the thing. If you buy it the way most people do, you are absolutely wasting your money. Not because it is bad, but because out of the box, a lot of LOQ 15IRX10 configs are leaving 20 to 30% of their performance locked away. During my week of testing this thing as a daily driver, I went from seriously disappointed to genuinely impressed, but only after I fixed a few sneaky issues that nobody mentions in the product page. And one of them is a straight-up deal-breaker if you miss it. Before we dive into what I discovered and the exact config you should and should not buy, if you are already half convinced and just want the best current price on the Lenovo LOQ 15IRX10, I will drop my recommended Amazon link in the description. But stick around, because getting the wrong version of this laptop is the fastest way to burn your cash. So here is why I even picked up the LOQ 15IRX10 in the first place. I wanted a laptop that could handle modern games like Cyberpunk 2077, Warzone, and Baldur's Gate 3 at 1080p without sounding like a jet engine or melting my desk. My old budget laptop had a weak GPU, terrible thermals, and a screen so dim I could barely see anything in daylight. I was tired of compromises. Either pay over $1,500 for a fancy Legion, or accept a so-called budget gaming laptop that stutters the moment you open Discord and Chrome with your game. When I saw the LOQ 15IRX10 with a 14th Gen Intel HX chip and an RTX 4050 or 4060, plus a 144Hz display, it looked like the perfect middle ground. But cheap gaming laptops have burned me before with throttling, single-channel RAM, and garbage cooling. So I went in skeptical and decided to treat this like a real test, not just an unboxing. First thing I tested was raw gaming performance. My unit has an Intel Core i7 HX chip, RTX 4060, 16 gigs of DDR5, and a 144Hz 1080p display. Out of the box, 1080p high settings in Cyberpunk hovered around 70 to 80 FPS with DLSS on performance mode. Warzone 2 on balanced settings was sitting between 100 and 120 FPS. Valorant and CS2, no problem, both easily over 200 FPS, which actually makes the 144Hz panel feel worth it. But then I noticed something weird. Frame times were inconsistent, and in heavier games there were random hitches. That is where it gets interesting. I dug into the system and found the classic budget laptop trap: single-channel RAM on some configs. If you get the 8 or 16 gig single-stick setup, you are crippling the CPU and GPU. After adding a second matching stick to run dual-channel, those stutters almost disappeared, and minimum FPS jumped noticeably. In Cyberpunk, 1% lows went from the mid-40s to the high 50s. That is the difference between feeling choppy and feeling smooth. So yes, performance is solid, but only if you fix that bottleneck. Next, I pushed thermals and noise. I ran a 30-minute gaming stress test plus a Cinebench loop. The CPU regularly climbed into the low 90s Celsius, which sounds scary but is pretty normal for HX chips in a thin chassis. The GPU sat in the mid to high 70s under heavy load. Fans in performance mode are definitely loud. If you are gaming without a headset, you will hear it. But the important part: I did not see major thermal throttling once I set it to performance in Lenovo Vantage and locked it to the discrete GPU. It sustained its clocks better than a lot of so-called premium laptops I have tested. But then we get to the display, and this is where many people will be disappointed if they do not know what they are getting. The 15.6-inch 1080p 144Hz panel is fine for gaming. Motion is smooth, response is decent, and G-Sync compatible on some models is a nice touch. However, brightness is only around the 300 nit range, and color coverage on most configs is closer to mid-range, not creator grade. So if you are expecting a super vibrant 100% sRGB panel for color-critical content creation, you will probably feel underwhelmed. For pure gaming and everyday use, it is good. For serious photo or video work, you will want an external monitor. Battery life was my next test. With mixed-use web browsing, YouTube, some light editing, at around 60% brightness in hybrid mode, I was getting roughly 4 to 5 hours on the 80 Wh battery. Gaming on battery. You are looking at maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours and performance drops. This is a machine that wants to live on the charger when playing games. Not shocking for an HX plus RTX system, but you need to know that going in. Ports and build quality were actually a pleasant surprise. Most of the heavy ports, HDMI 2.1, Ethernet power, are on the back, which keeps cables out of the way. You get USB-A and USB-C on the sides, and the chassis, while plastic, feels sturdy enough with minimal flex on the keyboard deck. Speaking of the keyboard, travel is good, the layout is familiar, and the optional 4-zone RGB backlight looks clean, not gamer clown show. The trackpad is nothing special, but it is accurate and reliable. Here is the big revelation after all of that testing. The Lenovo LOQ 15IRX10 is not a waste of money if you buy the right spec and you know its limits. I spent days gaming, editing some 1080p footage, and using it as my main work machine. Once I switched to dual-channel RAM, enabled the MUX for the dedicated GPU, and set the power profile correctly, it behaved like a laptop that costs several hundred more. In terms of value, an RTX 4050 or 4060 paired with a 14th Gen HX CPU at this price is hard to beat. But if you grab the lowest config with single-channel RAM, weaker GPU, and expect silent cooling plus creator-grade screen quality, you are going to be disappointed and feel like you got scammed. Compared to alternatives like the Acer Nitro or some cheaper MSI models, the LOQ 15IRX10 often runs cooler and has a slightly cleaner design with better port layout. Compared to Lenovo Legion, you lose some premium materials and display quality, but you also keep a lot of the performance while spending less. So it is not too good to be true. It is just very configuration dependent. Now that you know the real story and the specific traps to avoid, your next step is simple. Do not just click the first LOQ 15IRX10 listing you see. Check the exact specs, GPU, RAM configuration, and display, and then grab the right one. I have linked the config I actually recommend down in the description, usually at the best current price, so you do not have to dig through a mess of confusing listings. Bottom line, here is my verdict. If you are a gamer or student who wants strong 1080p performance, does most of your work plugged in, and is okay with a good but not amazing screen, the Lenovo LOQ 15IRX10 is absolutely worth your money. As long as you get at least 16 gigs in dual channel and an RTX 4050 or 4060. If you live on battery, need a color-accurate display for pro creative work, or hate fan noise, this is not your laptop. For everyone else, it is one of the smartest budget performance buys of 2025. Do not waste your money on the wrong gaming laptop. Waste it on the wrong configuration of this one, and that is on you.